semana.
Bueno, buenos días. Mi nombre es Sebastián Gómez.
Good morning. My name is Sebastián Gómez. I work in the GeneXus development team. And we will talk about Windows Phone, its platform, how it's doing today, and what GeneXus is doing about the platform, which is new for us. You can see the hashtag of this so that you can make comments afterwards. The first question that we can make is why Windows Phone? And actually, the answer to this question can be twofold. Why have we analyzed this platform in GeneXus, and why we, as a GeneXus community, need to start paying attention to this platform? When Fabian started his presentation, he said, we have to build applications in iOS, but I will prove that that's not so much the case. Well, that will depend on the market. You've probably seen this graph several times. Panisa has showed it. You can see Android supremacy here. I'm interested to show you here that blue line that goes over the red one. That's the Windows Phone platform surpassing BlackBerry, which is left in a third position in the global market. Third position by far with 2.7% so far. That's the share it has. But that percentage is not the same in every place. So that's why it's important to see what's happening in some places. In Latin America, last year we had this phone that said that Windows phones take second place in terms of platform. This was boosted by Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, where it has an important market share. I heard that it has 25% market share in Argentina. What does this mean? If I'm going to build a smart device application for Argentina, I will have to take this into account in terms of Windows Phone. Take into account the market plus some other things that I will mention further on. What happens in Uruguay? This is a survey which is called Study of Uruguayan Internauts, which was done in 2013. This came out in October last year. And this says that Nokia had 19%. It's not... It's an important number. Obviously, this has probably changed. My father used to have a BlackBerry, and now he has an iPhone, so something must have changed. Yeah, we have numbers from Europe. I don't know whether you can see that. These are the 5 from Europe: Germany, France, Spain, France, and the UK. All of them have an average of 8.5% of adoption of Windows phones. But in Great Britain, this is around 10%. It's still the third platform. But in Italy, for example, this is 13%, and it's in a second place. So if I'm going to work for Italy, I will have to consider this data. These numbers are quite far from that 2.5% global figure I mentioned at the beginning. And this survey, I also found Mexico, which is around 6%, which, as I said before, has a quite important market share. And the curious thing here is that 4.6 that you can see there in terms of iOS is in the capital city of Mexico. So outside that area, the difference is even bigger, both for Android and for Windows Phone. Apart from seeing the region, the target of my application, you still need to analyze something else. You might be tempted to think that about the Windows Phone strategy. It actually has low-end devices which have allowed it to gain acceptance in different markets. So this is something that I need to take into account. By having totally absurd examples, if I'm going to have an application for someone who collects old cars, it will be totally different than an application for public transportation. So these are things that I need to consider when it comes to choosing my platform for my smart devices applications. And now, thinking about the future. What will happen? What do we envisage based on what we have today? A couple of years ago, there was an announcement of saying that Microsoft had to buy Nokia. That actually happened. Now Microsoft owns the cell phone segment of Nokia, which means that Microsoft is now manufacturing its own hardware, which probably the iOS people think this is good news. I don't know what will come out of all of this, but it will probably be something good, because before they used to be two separate companies. One did the hardware and firmware, and the other one did the OS. But now they're the same company, so you would expect cell phones to get to the market in shorter times. Something that Fernando also mentioned, these are providers, well-known providers of hardware, manufacturers that have commercial agreements signed with Microsoft for releasing devices. So Microsoft wants to start having lots of devices in the market, from the low end to the high end. And this was done basically through two changes in its policy. First, the operating system for hardware manufacturers for OEM would be $0. They don't need to pay Microsoft any license for having a Windows Phone system. It used to be $20 before. And the second thing is that Microsoft eliminated one hardware restriction it had on its devices, where they needed to have a debug button, a physical button, in the hardware itself, and this is no longer necessary. So, with this, it managed to sign these commercial agreements, and it even managed to have HTC manufacture this phone. On the right is HTC One M8, which was launched in April this year with Android, and the left one is exactly the same hardware with Windows Phone 8.1. What does this mean? HTC didn't have to pay anything to test its luck with Windows Phone. This came out 1 month ago. Actually, I don't really need how this is doing. It's only been released in the US so far. So they didn't have to pay any license, and they didn't have to build anything new because they already had it. So it was a great opportunity for them. I know LG will also release one of their phones with Windows Phone, which will be the first Windows Phone with 64 bits. So with this, you would expect to see the market being full with these cell phones. My sister-in-law wanted to change her cell phone to the Antel telephone company. She wanted to have internet access, and she came back with two Nokia 625 for her and for her husband, which is quite a good cell phone, with a good camera, good definition, etc. And she was really happy with her cell phone. Obviously, same thing happened as when people used to buy Android cell phones. She didn't know she had a store that she could download applications, etc. I think all those things will gradually change. It's like seeing everything that happened with Android at the beginning. I'm not saying that this will have the same results, but it's going through a similar path. But in order to build an application, you need to decide what platform you will be based on. And with these things I mentioned, or maybe you might not make a decision and you might make your application for everything. And for that, we're releasing the Windows Phone generator in the next preview in the coming weeks. We will have the first beta version of this generator. And if you're used to working with the GeneXus Smart Devices generator, this is pretty much the same. You have there the properties, and you will find a new property there, which is to generate Windows Phone. And there you have panels in your application with a default layout. So the application is generated as it is. Or otherwise, you can add your own layouts, portrait, landscape, just like any other platform. And by hitting F5, if you have connected an 8.1 Windows Phone device, which is connected to the computer, you will be able to test the application on the cell phone. And otherwise, you will use an emulator that comes with the SDK from Windows Phone that allows you to emulate certain things, such as a location where you are, if you want to try different things in terms of the GPS. So we did the application for the event, which is a shortened version. It's not actually the one from iOS and Android. It does have the same data, though. And Windows Phone has a way of navigating applications, which is quite specific because you have to swipe to the right or to the left. And where it says menu, tracks, and speakers, there's quite a large control where you can see different screens. This is something that's typical of a platform that is manually made for Windows Phone. So if you're going to do this with GeneXus, you will want to have that. From a GeneXus point of view, from our programming point of view, that's a dashboard. And each of those is a panel over there. So there's no major complication in that sense. I wanted to talk about Cortana too. Cortana is the assistant, the personal assistant that Microsoft released with Windows Phone 8.1. The video that I showed at the beginning was a presentation of Cortana that was done on the build in San Francisco this year. And for those of you who have iPhone, that's an assistant quite similar to Siri. It allows me to remind me of doing such and such a thing when I get to such and such a place, or when my sister phones, etc. So in the generator, Cortana is still in its beta version, but we wanted to include it. And with GeneXus, we have a possibility of programming which are the voice commands that I will allow my application so that Cortana can interpret them. In order to give you an example, this is working on an application that is Find My Plane, which is in the Windows Phone store. I can say Find My Plane, flight number, and Cortana gives you the flight number, the status of the flight. If it is flying, it shows me a map, etc., etc. So, to sum up, the Windows Phone generator will be released in beta and Evolution 3 Upgrade 2. There will be a preview in a couple of weeks. It's meant for Windows Phone 8.1, which is the latest OS that was released. This was announced in April and was released in May. I was hoping it would be all over the world now, because Windows Phone 8.1 is for any cell phone that already has Windows Phone 8. They will be updated to 8.1, but that hasn't been the case for every case. In the case of low-end phones, they haven't been updated. I really hope, I don't know, but I hope that by the end of the year, all of them will be updated. The generator comes from our generator for Windows 8. It's the same model, and it allows us to evolve both of them hand in hand and in parallel. It doesn't have offline properties so far. Please see it as a smart device generator in terms of what Evolution 2 was for other platforms or other generators. Has full APIs support. I put almost on the screen because they have almost all APIs for geolocation, SDAPs that we have in GeneXus, except for those that work for the offline property, are also included in the Windows Phone generator. In terms of platform aware, this is something that we share with all generators. The menu that I showed is typical of Windows Phone. Obviously, it's a native application, and it will feel like a Windows Phone native application, even though you might be programming with a high degree of abstraction. In terms of the cherry on the icing, Cortana will be integrated. It's fun to give messages to your cell phone and test it. At the bottom, you can see the URL address, so that if you want to write that down, gxtechnical.com/Windows Phone, there you will find all the material. There will be a forum where I will be working with a product team. They either are ready or will be ready in a couple of days with all the necessary information. So far, this was my presentation. I was supposed to finish here and I would leave. Oh no, I'm not allowed to say this. There's something else that I want to tell you before I go. Because yesterday, Microsoft announced a technical preview for Windows 10. They didn't say much about what will happen, whether this will be downloadable as from today, but they mentioned some aspects that are worth mentioning. This will be one product family, as they say, same family through all devices, which doesn't mean that it will be the same Windows through all devices or the same application for all devices, but it will be one platform and one store. And by saying this, I think that they will have one application that it's installed both in the iPad and the iPhone or the cell phone and the tablet. For Microsoft, now this is not so, so I think that's a direction they're heading to. The other thing that is worth mentioning from their announcement is that the people who wanted to be prepared for Windows 10 should build universal applications, which are the ones that we generate. So I think that we're on the right track. We don't know what our destination will be, but we know we're on the right track. So, having said this, the question has sort of been answered. Why Windows Phone? Well, because of a series of factors. It's not just a new platform with a lot of potential. It has shown a lot of growth for obvious reasons, but it's a very interesting platform to pay attention to. You don't have to choose, because you can do this for all platforms with GeneXus. But if you still have any doubt as to why to build applications for Windows Phone, I would say why not. So thank you very much.